Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and I am here with Yaakov Markel. We just got back from shooting, and I thought it would be a good time to talk about recent gun legislation and attempts to grab the guns. We've seen a lot of strides made in places like California. As of October 1st in Maryland, there has been this red flag law, which basically allows, families or police, more importantly, to petition state courts and allow, a gun grab to basically take place as a temporary means of subduing a potential problem. And you could imagine how loose that and that varies and that is defined. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this shooting that happened in Maryland as a man was shot dead trying to resist this crazy law. And I wanted to go into this a little bit with you because right now, the Arundel police chief in Maryland is saying that the shooting was evidence that the month-old red flag law is needed. So basically, go to a guy's house, try to seize his property, kill him for resisting, and now it's evidence that we need to do this more often. What do you think about how this is starting to play out?
Well, I'll say one thing about Maryland in general, and I used to live in Baltimore. There are literally areas in Baltimore where the police don't go. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're claiming that now they're going to start enforcing these laws is kind of ridiculous when they won't even enforce laws that already exist in areas that are too dangerous for them. So it's just utter cowardice on the part of the police departments in Maryland, and they're really not going to accomplish anything except for going against law-abiding citizens. They won't do anything against the ones that are actual criminals.
No, that's one of the biggest issues is there's organized crime gangs, and then there's a really big organized crime gang that's going against the organized crime gangs by going against innocent people. And how that meets any kind of good conclusion is beyond me. But we have seen this slow encroachment of, individual liberties. People say, well, the Constitution, well, this is a good way to get around that Constitution is by using these red flag laws, which I believe are being put forward right now in about 18 different states. California has it, I believe, as well. And this is something that's really starting to concern me because, one of the great things about the United States, at the very least, is that there's a populace mostly largely able to protect themselves against government. And of course, when you go to most other countries, they took away the guns and then every other individual liberty kind of just seeped out and now they're completely controlled. I mean, look at China, for example. It's insane. So do you think that there are some kinds of, there's a momentum towards taking the guns, or are we looking at losing battle when we got, the 3%ers?
So with gun rights or gun laws in general, you have, with activism, there's this sort of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back that's just been going on for the past 200 years. So you have, the NRA, Jews for Preservation of Firearms Ownership, and this one and that one. All of these are fighting these lobbying battles where they're getting 2 steps ahead, going 3 steps back, and it's just this slow burn of gun rights. And the truth of the matter is that all of that has recently become irrelevant. So, for example, in Washington State, they just made a law that any semi-automatic rifle is now considered a assault rifle, which is totally nuts. But the fact of the matter is that you can go and make a AR-15 in your garage in about 2.5, 3 hours maybe, with no serial number, with no record of it, and anybody can do that with or without special machinery. You can do it with hand tools. So the whole idea that they're taking away rights from people is kind of nonsensical, because we actually have the ability, not the right, but the ability to defend ourselves against the government, whether or not they like it.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole point of owning a gun in the first place. It's like, you can't go out with an AR-15 and shoot a bunch of deer. Well, you can, but that's not what the whole reason for having an ability to defend yourself is. And I want to quickly just go into some of the statistics that I have in the top of my head, because it always bugs me, because we will always get people that will comment, well, we don't need that kind of gun. We don't. Look at the statistics from the FBI and the NSC going back over 30 years. Places with more guns have less crime. The places that have greater gun rights have less have less crime in general, rape, theft, murder, etc. You name it, kidnapping. You go to places like Chicago, and yes, we have overdrawn talking about Chicago. Everyone in this community talks about Chicago, but it's a good example. I mean, people can laugh it off all they want, but you go to Chicago, you go to Baltimore, for example, you go to a lot of these places where there are strict gun laws, and they are the worst places in the country for walking down the street at night if you're a woman, if you are just, if you have a suit and tie on.
Whereas if you go to Kennesaw, Georgia, which in 1980, I think 1980 or 1981, they passed a city ordinance that required gun ownership by anybody in the city that was not otherwise barred, from being a felon or whatever, that was not otherwise barred from being a gun. Every single household had to have a weapon, and their crime rate over the 30-year period from passage of the law to 30 years later was I think it was 3 murders, one of which was committed with a gun, and the other 2 were, all 3 of which were some kind of family dispute, husband killing wife, or some kind of thing like that. Otherwise, crime rate in Kennesaw was absolutely nil, practically non-existent. And we're not talking about some little out of the way place. We're talking about a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. And Atlanta, Georgia has a, fairly standard, if not higher than normal crime rate. It's not a low crime city.
Yeah. I mean, bad guys don't follow laws. I mean, good guys don't really follow laws either, but bad guys definitely don't follow laws. And I think it should be mentioned. I mean, it shouldn't have to be mentioned that you go to these places where there's a lot of gun crime and there's going to be bad people getting guns, and then the good guys can't defend themselves. And I mean, this is something that is really elementary, that has been spoken about for decades and has been proven, tried and true for decades and hundreds of years, really, where you go to certain places in Alabama, for example, and people love guns in Alabama, and the crime rate has gone down and down and down. And globally, overall, since 1997, the crime rate worldwide has gone down. So people use Australia as an example, but their crime rate has actually gone down at a lesser rate than the overall world crime rate after they banned guns. And we see the same thing in places like Britain, where it's more dangerous if you're a woman to walk down the street in the streets of London at nighttime than it is in South Africa, where they also have a lot of gun laws in place. I mean, why do we always look for government, the biggest murderer throughout all of mankind, to solve these problems of people killing each other and hurting each other? Well, someone stole something. Yeah, well, the government has stolen billions and trillions of dollars. Yeah, but someone killed someone. Yeah, well, the government has killed millions and millions of people. So we need, and it's always, by the way, it's something I have to bring up because I find it funny. It's a lot of anti-Trump people out there. I'm not a pro-Trump guy, but as you guys know, but these super anti-Trump people out there that are like, I hate Trump. He's a Nazi. He's an ex-Hitler, but we need him to take the guns away, so we'll all be safe. Only he should have the guns. Where does this mentality come from? What do you think, Yaakov?
Honestly, I think people don't really think very deeply about things in general, in the general public. People just react to things in a very knee-jerk way. So I think trying to expect the electoral public to do anything rational, especially when they're not the ones doing it. They're the ones that are just, they just press a button on a machine or check a box or something. They don't really have to give any thought to how things function. It's really stupid to expect them to do anything rational.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest issues, is a lot of people will say, well, we can't have anarchy because there's too many stupid people and too many bad people, so therefore we should put them in places of power with guns. Right. And that's the thing. This isn't real gun control. Real gun control would be seizing the guns from the government, which has killed more people than anything, but it's rather counterproductive to be like, well, those guys that have done all that killing, they should come after everyone else and take their guns. Because I'm telling you, if you're a woman out there that's watching, you want to have a gun in your house. I mean, if someone breaks in, you'll be able to defend yourself. And I don't even want to go into what might happen if you cannot defend yourself. And we see that with massive rape rates in places like New York, and in places like Chicago and Baltimore and Detroit and other places, where these rates have gone sky high at all the same, while the world crime rate is going down. People tend to pick and choose facts instead of look at all the statistics all together, compare them with each other, and see that as you ban guns, as you take them away, you will have greater crime rates. It's just a statistical fact, and there's no debating it because it has worked in that way in every single place in the world other than Japan, which is an anomaly on the statistics overall. But places like Australia, the crime has gone down at a lesser rate than the world crime rate. I mean, you just can't debate the fact that guns are there to protect people or for people to protect themselves and independently.
Well, and certainly getting back to these red flag laws, if somebody is red flagged and let's say they give up their guns, right? What's to stop them from going out and buying a hand drill and a plastic jig and getting a piece of aluminum that they can, in a little bit of work, turn into an AR-15 or turn into a 1911 or turn into an AR-10 or whatever in their garage in a few hours. And then there's no way to confiscate that one without red flags because no one knows they have it. And anybody can do that. And even if people say, oh, well, we'll change the laws and we'll make 80% lowers illegal and so on and so forth, that's not going to change anything either. Because the fact of the matter is you could take a block of aluminum and turn it into an AR-15 in your house with a couple of, hand tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to get your thoughts on this as we close it off, is that there is this push to make people more dependent. So when you look at the monetary system, when you look at the welfare state, when you look at taking people's weapons away so that they can't defend themselves, it's like this slow incremental frog boil to complete dependence on the state. And as we've seen the same thing play out in so many countries around the world, what do you think about this instrumental, very important, but horribly, historically terrible push to, make people more dependent on government?
It's not going to work. The fact of the matter is, so many things that we see in the free market are negating everything that the government does. So, for example, with the banking system that you brought up, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are not going away no matter what they do. Same thing with gun rights. No matter what they do, 3D printing and milling things out in your own home and whatever, that's not going to disappear. And so on and so forth. There's so many different examples that simply over the course of history, we can look at it and see that the free market always wins because you cannot fight the laws of economics, just like you cannot fight the laws of physics, the laws of nature. And economics is simply the law of nature.
Yeah, it's individual demand on the market, competition, innovation, and everything the government does, a free market does better. So it's hard for the government to keep up with an entity that is so free, that is based on individual demand. It's hard for them to keep up with something that is truly not forced, not inefficient. There's more incentive to do well on the free market. When you see government, they spend 20 times more on the same project and take 20 times more time because they don't feel the incentive to do better and do it fast and do it well, whereas a free market, you're forced to do things well and provide people with quality at a better price all the time, competing against anyone else that intervenes or tries to steal the market out from underneath you. So it's so important that people look towards the market. And like you mentioned with the monetary system, cryptocurrency, there are so many infrastructures and alternatives that are being created on, through decentralized blockchain technology that can replace all of these systems. And regardless of popular belief or popular support for said thing, it would be almost impossible to shut down such a fast moving market that's totally decentralized.
Well, people can support statist approaches to things all they want, but if the fact of the matter is, I'm from LA. If you go into West Hollywood, Airbnb is completely illegal in West Hollywood. But if you go down to West Hollywood and you open up your Airbnb app, and keep in mind, West Hollywood is statism central. Like people are very, very into state solutions to things there, and if you go down there and you open up your Airbnb app, you will see thousands of Airbnbs all over West Hollywood. They're all available. And if the government goes in and starts trying to crack down on these things, they will be hugely unpopular, so they don't. Yeah. They'll lose any support that they have. So even though it's illegal, they literally can't do anything about it because they'll lose their consent to the governed, or whatever you want to call it. They'll lose their next election, obviously. So they can't. And when some cities were trying to ban Uber, who are the people that came out against it? It was Republicans and Democrats and independents, and everybody came out against it, because as much as they may or may not believe in state solutions to things, when you are trying to affect something that actually has a positive benefit in their lives directly, they don't want you to touch it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example. And same thing goes for on the highways. Find someone who isn't speeding. I mean, every now and then there's that odd person that's actually causing more potential danger by driving slower in the fast lane. But overall, I mean, if you're driving the speed limit, people get mad at you. You should be driving a bit further than the speed limit, a bit faster. And we see that everywhere, really. Even in status Canada, everywhere you go, no one's driving the speed limit unless you're 95 years old. I mean, the fact of the matter is people are intrinsically free. They act free until certain things benefit them personally in their mind, or they believe in a certain system, then they support something. But there cannot be a line drawn, because no matter what, it'll always be hypocritical, because they won't support one thing and then they'll support another thing. You'll see a person with a Bernie Sanders bumper sticker driving, 85 in a 60. And I mean, the fact of the matter is people will always feel the need to be free. But of course, there is a certain religion, a cult that people have fallen for at a vast scale. And I don't know how much longer it can possibly carry on. But anyway, I appreciate you joining us today, Anarchy Jewish Man, as you might know him on Facebook. And, let's just look to the free market, look to the future, look to be independent, self-sustainable, free human beings, and not bow on our knees to some giant collective organized crime racket to save us from ourselves or from the problems that they created in the first place. So thanks for going into this with us. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored on YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. Also, check out our Bitcoin address below, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at steemit.com. We're at Josh Sigurdson. It's a future of social media where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So make sure to check us out there. Make sure to join us at Anarchapulco 2019 with people like Ron Paul, G. Edward Griffin, of course, Jeff Berwick, Vid Jedlicka. So many incredible speakers are going to be speaking. It's just a massively growing event. It is something you have to see to believe. So make sure to check it out below and save money on your tickets by using promo code WAM, that's WAM, and I hope to see you there. Also, check out our newsletter as we are getting demonetized and censored and all that. We don't know what comes next, so we have an email, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Send us an email with subject line YES, YES, and we will include you in the newsletter where we will continuously keep you updated. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.